even scheduled it for 5:30 instead of 5 o'clock, and I was still late. Got back from Mom's Day gigantic lunch, late lunch. First, okay, so it was me, my mom, my aunt, and my brother. And we all went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which was awesome. I loved that movie. This was my second time seeing it, actually. But yeah, great acting, great characters, absolutely hilarious. I think the Guardians of the Galaxy is probably the most legit Marvel movies because they're just so they don't take themselves that seriously. I guess the Avengers movies are that way too. Just not quite as funny. A little more serious and more powers, I guess, in the Avengers. But forget that. I don't care. I want entertainment. I want it to be fun. So we went to see Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and then we went to Red Lobster, and I ate too many biscuits, of course. I also had some lobster tacos. They were okay. The best part of the late lunch, early dinner was they had a lava cookie, like a chocolate chip cookie. Looked like they baked it. It looked like a cookie pie, like a pie, and the crust was just made out of chocolate chip cookie, and then the molten hot fudge in the center with ice cream on top. Oh my god. So that was Mother's Day. It was nice to treat the fam to that stuff. Cookies are way better than lobster taco. Yeah. Maybe I should have just got a bunch of cookies instead of the lobster tacos. Like 3. Maybe I should have gotten the 3 lava cookies instead of actual dinner. All right. Noosis has just started watching. What's up? Okay, so today we are going to have lots of fun stuff happening. Right at the last minute, I was able to get a hold of C.T. Phipps. If you guys don't know who C.T. Phipps is, he is the author of the, what is it? There's a series that's extremely popular. The Rules of Supervillainy, I think it's called. He's sold a ridiculous number of audiobooks in that series, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that Jeffrey Kafer was the narrator, and it kind of just was perfect for the book. Jeffrey Kafer's done a ton of his books. Anyway, Kafer had this one book called Straight. Oh shit! I have the Delvers thing still up. Sorry. He had this one book called Straight Outta Fangton on his schedule, and he decided he really didn't have time for it. So he talked to C.T. Phipps. He said, "Hey, check out this Jeff Hayes dude," and he referred me, and I auditioned for the book, but then it ended up I didn't have time for it either. At least not for when he wanted to get it done. My schedule's packed until September, and he wanted to get it done earlier than that. But he did love my audition. He wants me to work on something else for him in the future. So at least there's that. And so I told him I had such a good time auditioning for this one because it is a comedy that I decided, hey, let me help you promote it a little bit. Let me just use it on my show. I'm not sure exactly who he's going to have narrate. Apparently, David Wilson of Crossroad Press had a good person in mind, so he's going to go with him. But this is actually the main character, the narrator of the story, is a black dude. I can't remember where it's set, but it is really funny. He's got a funny attitude. His friends are funny. It's the way that C.T. Phipps explained it to me. It's basically like Clerks if Dante was a black vampire. So I'm going to start off the show with Straight Outta Fangton by C.T. Phipps. And then I'll be moving on to one more chapter of The Art of Madness by A.J. Mayall, because I've just been having fun with this book, and I think he deserves some more promotion as well. I mean, last I checked, he didn't have any ratings, which is, I mean, upsetting to me, because he has a really professional product. It seems like, the series is a lot of fun. It's in the, urban fantasy genre, which maybe that genre is just saturated at this point. Maybe that's the problem. But the cool thing about this series, about the main character in this series, is that he's like a breath of fresh air. Everybody else is so kind of, everyone else is kind of drab and moody, whereas the main character in The Art of Madness is chipper and positive. But the environment, the urban fantasy is still it's still gloomy. So it's a nice contrast, and it what it kind of reminds me of, even though the tone of what I'm about to tell you is kind of in general brighter. There's a TV show with a guy who pretends to be psychic, but he's not really. He's just really good at observation. And it's been going for like years now. So the main character is a really hyper guy. Psych, that's it. Psych, yes. Kind of reminds me of that show a little bit. Which I love that show. Yeah, Psych. Is it still going? I think it had like 6 seasons at least. And his partner was funny. It just a lot of, yes, Gus, that's right. They just had great chemistry. And it was just a funny show. But this series kind of reminds me of that. So we're getting back onto Art of Madness. One more chapter. And then everybody loves large chests. So I'm going to be jumping on one chapter of this. Now, there's Nevin told me that he's got like a whole 8 chapters in a row he wanted me to read. But I can't really fit all that in. I can't schedule all that. But he and I have also been talking about actually publishing an audiobook on Audible for Everybody Loves Large Chests. So a full production would be, I think, so much fun. Yeah, that would be. And if I did something on SBTL that was like a whole 8 chapters, I feel like I'd have to just start a whole new show and do a weekly thing that way. And I don't know if I really have time for that. But I am willing to do more here and there, cherry-picking chapters, like you're saying. And then if we release an actual audiobook, I'm sure you guys would eat that up. I'm sure everyone would be happy with that. But we still need to work out the details for that. As I said, my schedule is jam-packed. So we'll need to work that out. But I want to do it. I want to do Everybody Loves Large Chests in an official Audible format. We just need to break it up. And, I think that the nature of Everybody Loves Large Chests, it seems like it is just a complete serial. So he could probably chop it up into just the right portions to make it profitable for me and him on Audible. And he would also have to publish on Kindle. So that's something that would need to happen. But so that's what we're talking about. No official word yet, but I wanna make it happen. If you guys wanna, like maybe talk about it on the Sound Booth Theater Live Facebook group. If you think it would be cool to have an extra show just dedicated to Everybody Loves Large Chests, that might be cool too. I don't know. We're talking about it. Anyway, we're doing one more chapter from it today. And then when we get to the classics section, we will be visiting Alice in Wonderland. I like this cover. I found this cover. I always search, like when I do the classics, I I search for the images online, and I look for all the best covers that I can find. I don't really like any of the covers, but this one's pretty good. And you know what it isn't? It's not the god-awful Tim Burton Johnny Depp cover. Ugh. Did anyone like that movie? I mean, besides like 6-year-olds who'd never seen the original cartoon or had never read the book. I mean, there was like a war scene. Is that even in the book? I don't remember that being... Maybe in Through the Looking Glass or something there was a war scene. I read the book maybe a decade ago, and I do not remember a war happening. It was not a good movie. You know what? You know what happened is someone gave Tim Burton a bunch of crayons. He used to work with just black and white, and that was when he was awesome. And then someone gave him colors, and he fucked everything up. I think from Big Fish on, he just has been deteriorating and deteriorating. He used to be my favorite director, and now whenever he brings something out, I just kind of cringe. It just doesn't, he doesn't work well with, he just splashes color everywhere. It's like he's been color repressed or something. And it's really, bleh, awful. Just goes overboard. Even the, oh my god, the Willy Wonka movie he did? Ugh. I mean, like, compare that with Edward Scissorhands or Beetlejuice. There's no real comparison. You wouldn't even know it was the same director. Because Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands were, like, so tightly composed and so, visually cohesive. It was a very interesting style, and not just vomiting colors everywhere. So, Alice in Wonderland. Sorry about that little tangent. Alice in Wonderland for the classics. And for Cringe Theater, we have something very special. Something, I feel like this is for great science. Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt by Chuck Tingle. Look at that. Look at that cover. It leaves me speechless. Like, how did he come up with this? This is amazing. This is the weirdest thing I can think of. And this isn't even... Like, this is just the beginning of this crazy rabbit hole, since we're on the Alice in Wonderland theme. This particular book, it keeps going. There's sequels and sequels and sequels of this particular series. I have not even done a pre-read. I haven't read a single bit of Chuck Tingle. This is going to be a complete surprise for me. This is going completely off the cuff. And, yes, cringe is right. Like, the most cringiest thing I could possibly do for Sound Booth Theater Live. And you know what's really interesting is this Chuck Tingle guy, no one knows who this guy is. There's lots of speculation going on in the market. Like, I've heard people say that it's like a conglomerate of a bunch of different authors working together. So, I did tag his name on the Facebook post, and I'm hoping Chuck Tingle or his representative, AJ's saying, okay, so it'll be terrible, but you'll also see that there is a level of craft that shouldn't be there. I can't wait. This is amazing. So I tagged him on the Facebook post. I'm hoping that, at the very least, whoever Chuck Tingle's representative is, will get in touch with me with like some kind of cease and desist or something, so I can actually talk to them and see if there's some kind of series that we can do. There's a Chuck Tingle game being made, AJ's saying. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. I wanted to, real quick, no, we'll once we start Cringe Theater, I'll show you some more of Chuck Tingle's masterful work. Oh my god, there's a Kickstarter for it. Kickstarted in the butt, a Chuck Tingle digital adventure. Oh, man. Can you imagine what the stretch goals are going to be? Yikes. We'll talk more about this when it's time for Cringe Theater, but... real quick, I'm going to do just a few advertisements, a few tiny ones. I am working on, let's see, where are we at? Okay, so anyway, remember guys, we got Land of Gods out there. It needs some attention. Anyone who's watching, go check out all these books that have just recently come out. Justin Sloan's Land of Gods, the beginning of this epic Roman/Greek inspired fantasy. Stone Cold Bastards by Jake Bible. I'm actually going to get started on Jake Bible's lit RPG book, Everrealm. That's going to get started at the end of June, I believe. And I think he said that he's releasing the second book to that series at the beginning of July. So those two things are going to kind of come out at once and promote each other. And also Hell's Rejects and Fire and Brimstone are both available now on Audible. This is the first two books of the Chaos and the Covenant series by M.R. Forbes. It's fantastic. I've already recorded and produced book 3, but M.R. Forbes is waiting for a certain time to release that. The audiobooks are kind of trail behind a little bit, which is unfortunate, but he wants to kind of coordinate with Podium Publishing, and Podium's releasing 2 other books by M.R. Forbes, Tides of War, which will be out Tuesday, which is something that I narrated. That's the last book of the Rebellion series by M.R. Forbes. Yes, Jake Bible is released. He already did release a lit RPG, so you can go to Kindle and search for Everrealm if you want to read it now. But it will be the beginning of July when it's released in audio. So you can either wait or go check it out. I think it's good. There's a lot of people who are like, oh, this is too soft, lit RPG. This isn't really lit RPG. There's not enough stats. There's not enough talking about game mechanics. I don't give a shit about any of that. Sorry. It's a fun story. The characters are fun. And it's just a romp. I can't really say there's much of a message to it either. It's just Jake Bible. It's just a gore fest. You know, there's zombies, of course. It's Jake Bible, right? And it's all first person, which is like my favorite stuff. So you can go check that out if you want to. But yeah, the Chaos of the Covenant series, the first 2 books are out. The third book will be out, let's see, when did he say he was going to release that? The end of May or something like that. Yeah, it'll be released eventually. Book 3 is ready. He just needs to push the button, and like I said, he's coordinating with Podium Publishing in order to make sure they come out kind of scattered enough to where they don't mess with each other's sales, I guess. Anyway, so those are now available. Go check those out if you're interested. By the way, if you want to see, here's the Everrealm book cover. It's a cool cover. I like that cover. But then what's really, really funny is the cover makes it seem so much more serious than the book actually is. So, time to get started. Oh, did I leave? Oops. On Straight Out of Fangton. So I'm just going to do the first chapter of this one. And if I remember correctly, the first chapter is relatively short. I really wanted to do this book, guys. I really did. And Charles, C.T. Phipps, really did like my audition. That's why he offered me a job for way later. He said he's starting, I hope he doesn't get mad at me for spoiling this a little bit, but he said he's writing a time travel sci-fi series. And And it's like, he likened it to Terminator a little bit, except it's kind of like Terminator flipped on its head. So I'm going to be narrating as the bad guy. The bad guy is the main character. And I guess he's avoiding the people that have come back in time to attack him. So I hope I don't I hope I didn't give away something that he didn't want me to give away. But maybe stay quiet about it, or maybe not. I don't know. But that's what he was saying. He wants me for that role, and and he said that it's going to be closer to September when he releases that anyway. So it'll work out better for our schedules. But this is like a comedic vampire story. It's a romp, and Sin. It kind of reminds me of the book I did for your brother. So many books. Drawing a blank. Okay, well, it's rompy. On the hit list, that's it. It reminds me of that in tone. You know, it's like a kind of like a Kevin Smith type of thing going on with this book. So here goes. Straight Out of Fangton by C.T. Phipps. Chapter 1. Who ever heard of a vampire working at a goddamn 7-Eleven? I muttered, standing there fiddling with the Slurpee machine. Technically, it wasn't a 7-Eleven. It was a Quicken shop, which basically amounted to the same thing and was the fifth sort of this business in this location. You'd think the owners would have clued into the fact this particular road 30 minutes off the highway wasn't the best place to put such a store. I was dressed in a green apron and doing double duty, restocking the shelves and working the counter since my partner, David, was doing approximately jack and shit to help me. David Treem was a reasonably good-looking, blonde-haired Caucasian man who was presently doing his Randall from Clerks impression by reading a porn magazine as I did his job for him. This was doubly ridiculous because he was technically my slave. Heavy on the technically. Hell, Peter, who ever heard of a black vampire? David said, not bothering to look up. I stopped struggling with the Slurpee machine. There have been plenty of black vampires. Name 4. Eddie Murphy and Vampire in Brooklyn, Aaliyah and Queen of the Damned, Blade and Blackula. Blade is a half-breed. He doesn't count. Hey, can it with the racism, I said, frowning. Some of us started as half-breeds. David lowered his magazine. Speaking of which, when are we going to seal the deal? I grimaced. Could you not call it that? What? You'd prefer I term it something more erotic? I thought all vampires were bisexual. I blinked once. No, David. Well, that's disappointing. I sighed. Well, we're all learning new things about our condition, aren't we? When Thoth had approached me about the possibility of becoming a vampire, he'd more or less made it sound like becoming undead would be one long party. Since the great economic collapse when the vampire nation had bailed out the country, vampires had moved back from friendly body glitter types to ruthless, sexy badasses again. Thoth, who lived a life between Jay-Z's and Dracula's, certainly made it work. Excuse me. Thoth might have mentioned I was expected to work his way up from the bottom and make my own fortune, though. Honestly, there were times I regretted his making me a vampire. I didn't have any problem with the liquid diet, vulnerability to sunlight, or occasional homicidal urges, but being his servant had come with the perks. Now I was back to the same sort of work I'd been doing before Iraq, especially since my exile from New Detroit. I'm just saying. I'm ready for the next step. David shrugged his shoulders. How long have we been friends? Too long, by my estimation, I said, giving up on fixing the Slurpee machine. So maybe it's time you made me undead. You've only been my servant for You've only been my servant for a few months, David."
"That's long enough."
I rolled my eyes and went back to the cash register, biting my tongue about how I'd been Thoth's servant for 4 years. David knew that and didn't care. I decided, instead, to point out the systemic concerns. It's a bit more complicated than just changing whoever I want. Population control is a big thing among the undead. After the explosion following the bailout, they've seriously been cracking down on the creation of new vampires. Any one of us who changes a mortal without the local voivode's permission gets killed.
"Isn't that illegal?"
David said, finally paying attention.
"I mean, we're United States citizens and all."
"The half of the Supreme Court owned by vampires holds the rights of the VN sacred, while the other half approves of anything that gets more vampires killed." I turned to the 70-year-old across the counter who'd been waiting for her Slurpee. "I'm sorry, but the machine is busted. Can I get you anything else?" The woman sniffed the air before grabbing her handbag.
"You realize you're going to hell?"
It was statement rather than a question. I paused, wondering if I should respond to the old bat. Yes, I do." The woman stomped out, forgetting her debit card. I picked her card up and slipped it into the lost and found, not bothering to go after her. "Can you believe that?"
"Speaking as a bisexual man, yes," David said, shrugging. "Don't take this the wrong way, but I'm actually kind of glad you guys are the new target for the religious right."
"And you still want to be a vampire?"
"I figure immortality and the ability to fly would make up for it."
"I just kind of float," I muttered. "There's another thing they don't mention. It turns out all those awesome powers you see in movies take time to develop, as in centuries, and aren't nearly as cool as you'd think."
"Floating is cool."
"Hypnosis would be better."
"Isn't that like rape?"
David asked, tapping the Slurpee machine and making himself a green turbo blast. TM.
"What?"
I said, appalled.
"You know, hypnotizing women into letting you drain their blood?"
"Hell no! I mean, yes, but I wouldn't do it for that. I mean, for, convincing people to give me money or sending away my creditors."
"Isn't that like theft?"
"You're a real killjoy, David." I was spared further conversation by Steve, the other useless employee at the Quicken Shop, who was coming back from the bathroom. He was a 6'1", thin, pale man with long black hair, sunken eyes, and bad teeth, who dressed like he'd raided Russell Brand's closet and not washed for a month. Steve Emerson was a werewolf, something I'd only found out a month into working here when he dropped dead for 3 hours before spontaneously reviving as the police were carting him off. Apparently, resurrection was their thing, unless it involved wolfsbane. Though Steve was testing it with every conceivable illicit substance known to man. "Hey," Steve said, walking up to us and staring at us. David and I exchanged a glance. A few moments passed. Steve?" I asked.
"Yeah,"
Steve said. "You want to move on down?" I asked, not caring where he went, as long as it was away from me.
"I have something to tell you."
I really hoped it was that he was quitting, but suspected he'd forget even if he did. Then again, it wouldn't make sense for him to quit since he was my boss. Yes, Steve was the manager, and not me. God damn it, how far had I fallen that I give a shit about that? I was actually starting to miss Baghdad.
"What is it?"
"What is it?" David asked. "Don't encourage him," I said. "He's on meth right now."
"Heroin, cocaine, bath salts, PCP, and several new pharmaceutical concoctions," Steve said, smiling. "It's a well-balanced mixture, all canceling each other out."
"Jesus," David said.
"How are you not dead again?"
I flinched at the name Jesus, which was awkward since I was still nominally Christian and hadn't taken the whole vampires are damned before God thing all that seriously. It had also altered my swearing, as I could take the Lord's name in vain but not actually call to him. Actually, I'd be more concerned about how Steve is able to afford all the shit he puts in his system.
I'm a millionaire, Steve said. My great-great-grandmother was Betty Crocker. I'm pretty sure Betty Crocker wasn't a werewolf, I said. We'd have been able to taste the difference. David, however, bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Why are you working here, then?
Because I spend all my money on drugs, Steve said, shrugging. Anyway, you and David are like gay vampires, right? You're about half right, I said, remembering another reason why I disliked Steve. About the vampire or the... Steve started to say.
Just tell us what you wanted to say,
I said. I wondered how much of Steve's addled drug user act was just that. An act. Steve stuck his thumb over his shoulder and gestured back at the bathrooms. There's a dead girl in the bathroom. I blinked. So did David.
You might have opened with that, I said, pulling out my cell phone to call the cops. Any sign of how she died?
Well, she's getting back up, Steve said, shrugging. He grabbed a candy bar from the front rack and started eating it in front of me. I stopped dialing my cell phone.
Are you going to pay for that?
No, Steve said, chewing as he talked.
So she's a werewolf? David asked, all too fascinated by this.
No, she's one of your kind, Steve said. That's why I brought it up. I figure when she wakes up, she's going to probably kill whoever goes in the ladies' room. So we should probably lock her up until daylight and then drag her out into the road.
You can't do that, I said, horrified. That's murder.
Can't kill what's already dead, Steve said, finishing his candy bar and dropping the wrapper on the ground. No offense.
Quite a bit taken, I said, appalled.
I tried to think of who could be so horrifyingly reckless and stupid to turn a mortal in the bathroom and then abandon them to whatever fate awaited them. Vampires tended to awaken extremely hungry. Steve wasn't wrong about that, and the local police had a shoot-first, never-ask-questions policy when dealing with the undead. It was like being black with a little more black. Believe you me. Searching my memories of the customers who'd come in the past couple of hours, I couldn't think of anyone who particularly stood out. Then again, that was kind of the point of being a vampire. We didn't look any different from anyone else.
I mean, this is what I get for eating too much.
The inhuman beauty and pale skin thing was another invention of Hollywood, one for which I was very grateful. David, I need you to get all the security feeds for tonight, I said, taking off my apron and getting the spare key for the women's bathroom.
You sure I should be...
David started to argue.
Do it,
I snapped and exercised my will. David's eyes widened and he immediately went to work, following my command. I immediately felt guilty about doing that to my friend, but this was a situation where it was justified. I hadn't been kidding about vampires and population control. It was generally agreed that there should only be one vampire for every 100,000 humans, and given New Detroit had about 2,000 undead Americans, that wasn't exactly working out. The old ones in the vampire nation, as a result, had made a not-so-unofficial decree that there was to be some serious population pruning. Anyone not over the age of 100 was to be killed for the slightest offense. It had worked, after a fashion, since this had immediately resulted in the majority of people my age plotting ways they could off the old ones. I've even fought in the network riots that had gotten a lot of my friends killed. I'd also fought on the old one's side. None of that boded well for the girl in the bathroom's survival. "Hey, are you just going to abandon your post?" Steve said as I walked past him. "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I am." "Well, consider yourself fired," Steve called back after me.
"Can you imagine someone else actually giving a shit about working here?"
I called back, reaching the bathroom door. The newly reborn vampire inside hadn't ripped the door off the hinges, so that was a good sign. Steve paused. "Shit. Right. You're rehired."
"Yeah, well, I'm going to need the night off," I muttered.
"I'll make it up, though." "If you say so." Steve had already started eating another candy bar. As I started to unlock the door, it occurred to me it was very strange Steve knew about a dead woman being reborn in the bathroom. The thought abandoned me as soon as I had it, though, because I could hear sounds of feminine agony and torment from the other side. It was a sound that reminded me of a roadside bomb that had gone off while a bus full of mothers bringing their children home from a soccer game had been passing us. That had been another reason why I'd been glad to become a vampire. Vampires didn't dream. Excuse me. Opening the door, I peered inside the room and saw that water was starting to pool on the white tile floor where the newly created vampire had ripped out a sink and tossed it to the side. The mirrors were smashed and had little bits of blood from where her fists hadn't fully transitioned into the rock-hard granite they would later become. The Quick and Shop women's restroom had 3 green stalls and a scent of haphazardly applied bleach and disinfectant coming from everything. It didn't entirely eliminate the smells of humans going about their business, but weirdly, vampire nostrils didn't register that sort of thing as innately bad. It wasn't good, mind you, but our entire brain chemistry was rewired to smell and hear things differently. The newly reborn vampire was currently on the ground in the fetal position with her arms around her legs. She was a pretty, frizzy-haired black woman who reminded me a bit of Natalie Emmanuel, the actress who played Daenerys' assistant on Game of Thrones. The woman was dressed far too nicely for this place with an expensive leather coat and business suit dress, both of which were getting drenched now. Steve hadn't been lying. It was obvious she was going through the beginnings of the rebirth. I still remembered my experience with it and how utterly painful it had been. That had been when I'd had my creator with me to suppress the agony of my transformation as well as feed me fresh blood. Without your creator or enough blood to make the transformation go smoothly, it was damned near impossible to survive the event with your sanity intact. The worst cases became Draugr, what most people thought zombies were. They were mindless creatures that craved the flesh of the living. The few cases of families getting ripped to shreds and eaten had done wonders for the undead's reputation in America. I can tell you that. Whoever had abandoned her like this was a monster. Lifting my hands, I approached her slowly. "Okay, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to do my best. Don't be afraid. You're just becoming a Okay, that's terrible. Listen, I'm going to get you some blood, and it's going to be A-okay. Just stay calm and try to—" I was interrupted in my speech by her screaming as her fangs burst through where her canines had been. "Ouch! I hate that part," I said, taking a moment to think about where I could take her. The hospital was a horrible choice, as many people had found out when they'd taken hungry vampires to places filled with vulnerable prey that triggered all of their predatory instincts. An idea hit me. "Okay," I said, reaching down to take her arm. "We're going to go for a ride. The woman interrupted me by leaping up and sinking her fangs into my shoulder, tearing into my flesh to drink my blood. Oh, hell. Alright, so that's that. Straight Out of Fangton by C.T. Phipps. Available on Kindle. I think he published this last year, actually, but he just never got around to publishing the audio or doing much promotion with it because apparently like some personal stuff was happening right when this was released. So he's doing this audio thing as a way to kind of revitalize it and get it marketing again. But thank you, C.T. Phipps, for allowing me to read this for Sound Booth Theater Live. And hopefully you guys will go check it out. Like I said, it's going to be made into an audiobook by Crossroads Press. I'm not sure who's doing the narration, but it should be out soon. It should be out probably within the next month. So either go buy the Kindle version or just keep an eye out for it. It should be a good time. All right, now next will be The Art of Madness by A.J. Mayall. This will be Chapter 3, and it'll be the last installment that I do here on the show. Don't want to spoil the entire thing.
Okay, so I haven't read chapter 3 yet. This is kind of a surprise. What's going on here? We got, like, this new character. This new female character. We'll see how this goes. If I remember correctly, chapter 3 was super short, so... Chapter 3. Darkness. Oh, if only it were darkness. No, there was light. The damned light. It burned in the corneas, cut into the mind and left it screaming, an open wound in the psyche. Among the 7 in the room, 4, if you didn't count the corpses, was a young girl, no older than 13. She had been the most recent addition to the room with its blinding lights. The floor, the ceiling, the walls. Trying to escape by closing your eyes flooded your sight with ruddy orange glow.
"Why am I here?"
she asked weakly, for what seemed like the 100th time. The others shushed her, telling her it was going to be okay. They were lying, of course. The room of light left little hope of any understanding and reason. The 4 of them left alive, 2 men and a woman. 2 men, a woman, and the girl cowered in the cylindrical room. They stayed to the middle. The lights made the walls hot to the touch, making it impossible to know where the exit was. One of the men, the one who had resided the longest in the room, had stripped the dead of their clothing to lie on the floor. It wasn't as hot as the walls, but the heat was still unpleasant. He mused it might, eventually, be hot enough to burn. For modesty and respect, he kept the undergarments on the 2 men and the woman who had met their end in the room. He didn't know how they had, or why. He didn't know how or why for any of this, truth be told. He didn't know how or why he was here. He didn't know how or why the room could shine so brightly. He didn't know how or why the others had been brought here. He simply was. It was as undeniable as the spots in front of his vision when he tried to close his eyes. Every few hours, the lights would burn brighter for a moment, forcing them to shield their vision, and then bottled water and food bars were tossed in. Peanut butter with chocolate had been the last flavor. They consumed them greedily. The smell of sweat permeated the room as they sat there on the former garments of corpses. They hoped that... They hoped they'd not be made to sit on the dead if the floor got too hot for even the fabric. "All right," the man said, as he turned and felt out around him. "I don't know how long it's been since I was dumped in this place, but I need sleep. Emma, I tore off a strip of fabric. I'm going to see if a blindfold will work in this damned place. I might have left it near you. Can you pass it to me?" Emma didn't nod. There wasn't a point in the room of light. The others heard the woman feel about, pawing at the floor. Which one is this?
"I found it, Todd. Reaching out."
She extended her arm in the direction of his voice, grazing the cheek of the other man in the room before getting it to its intended recipient. "Thanks, Emma." Todd sighed and closed his eyes, wrapping the fabric around, looping it thrice before tying it to his head. He pulled off his shirt to make a makeshift pillow as he lay down. "Wish me luck. If food gets dropped, you're welcome to my rations. Well, save me some. I'll probably be thirsty when I wake up." He lay still, hoping for some much-needed rest. The others whispered amongst themselves, trying to give him the benefit of silence while he slept. If he could sleep. Emma felt around the room a bit with her free hand, the other, of course, covering her eyes, and brushed her fingers over the hair of the dead older woman. Todd had said he had done his best to cover the corpses' faces with their hands, to prevent damage from the heat of the floor. He wanted to give them more dignity, to make sure they could be recognized by their loved ones. Emma thought it was morbid, but this wasn't the place to worry about pleasantries. Her attention turned to the girl, Caroline. She had joined them last, only a few hours ago. Or had it been days? It didn't matter. Time was only in their minds in this damned room. It grew hotter far slower than she had expected it to.
She had assumed there was some ventilation going on, some cooling system, but they felt no breeze, no whir of machinery to tell them how they hadn't baked to death yet.
Caroline, how are you holding up?
She felt around and clasped the girl's hand in hers. Caroline sobbed, and Emma crawled to her, hugging her tight.
You can get through this. Just hang in there. They can't keep us in here forever, whoever they are. Anyways, it's going to get hot in here. If you cry, you'll be wasting hydration. I don't know if what they're giving us will be enough to keep us going. We have to conserve what little we have.
Caroline clung to the woman as the fourth living member of the group grunted, having sprawled out. He spoke little from when they entered. He pulled his large body up into a seated position.
I don't know about you two, but if they don't give us access to a bathroom soon, this place is going to be a lot worse for wear.
Emma curled her nose a bit at the comment.
Joel, please. This isn't the time for...
He cut her off, hissing in a whisper, trying to make sure that they didn't wake up Todd.
Emma, I'm not joking. We've been given a steady diet of those meal bars for God knows how long. I can't stop how my body works. We need to give serious consideration about this. It's already uncomfortable in here, and we have no clue how long we're going to be here. I have to use the restroom. Fairly certain you'll have to use the restroom. Hell, Caroline will soon enough.
He sighed.
Sorry, kid. I'm not trying to gross you out, but the fact of the matter is this place is sealed to the best of our knowledge. Urine ain't gonna make this place smell good, but if we can find a seam in the walls, we might be able to short out the lights.
Caroline clung closer to Emma, who turned her face in the direction of Joel's voice.
How do you expect to be able to see well enough to do that? You tried breaking the lights. Is your hand still hurt from that?
She was answered with a wince.
I got an idea, but I doubt you want to blot out the lights with crap.
Joel, I'm certain our captors will give us a mean... No.
Oh, no, this is Emma talking, sorry.
Joel, I'm certain our captors will give us a means to relieve ourselves.
She stretched out what she could.
What makes you say that?
Caroline muttered aloud. A grunt from Joel seconded the question. I'm not sure who's saying this.
The other three, whoever they are, were clean. There wasn't anything on the ground. The floor isn't messy. You see, when someone passes, the body will get rid of what's inside of it.
Caroline cringed.
So, like, they held them in here until they died? Pulled them out, cleaned them, dressed them, stuck them back in here, and put in more people? That's sick.
Emma stopped and stood.
I have an idea. Caroline, grab a shirt and cover your arms. I'm going to lift you onto my shoulders. Tell me if you can reach the ceiling.
The girl shook and rose, peeling the shirt off her back, glad her captors had left her with a sports bra. At least it was too bright in here to be seen by the men. She clung to Emma, who drooped before lifting her. Caroline did her best to steady herself, raising her covered hands above her head. Reaching. Contact. She heard Emma grunting under her.
Emma, I feel the ceiling. What do you want me to do? Punch it. Punch it as hard as you can. Maybe the glass isn't as thick as what they reinforced the bottom with.
Caroline pulled her hands to her chest, then thrust them up. A loud thud, then a whimper from the girl echoed. The second attempt made Joel, Emma, and Caroline's hearts jump. They heard a small crack. Emma lowered the girl, exhausted.
I think I can break it. Lift me back up.
Emma crouched and cradled Caroline's face in her palms.
Not yet. If broken glass or sharp plastic comes down, we need to be prepared for that. We'll do it soon, after Todd gets his nap.
There was a tear of fabric. Then again. Caroline and Joel received blindfolds like Todd's. Todd stirred. Not fallen asleep yet, by the way. Come on, everyone. Let's try to get some shut-eye. We can plan our grand escape when we wake up. They lay in the room, atop discarded clothes, blindfolded. It took some time, due to the heat of the room, but one by one, they fell asleep. And bit by bit, the room dimmed. Alright, that's it. That's chapter 3 of The Art of Madness. So we got the first 2 chapters that were like a little bit brighter, kind of showing us how stereotypical the world kind of is and how stereotypical the character was not. And so it was like overall it was a bit brighter. But this 3rd chapter takes us deep in the dark, which is weird because it's all in light. But it's a dark scene mood-wise. So there's like a good serious element to this series. Good characters. I think the writing is very well done. So go check this one out, guys. The Art of Madness by A.J. Mayall. And like I said last time, he's got like 1 million sequels to this one planned. So, maybe he's just going to keep releasing them and eventually they'll catch on. But you can go support him and try and get his momentum going if you can. So thanks again, Adric, for requesting The Art of Madness. And we'll keep the spoilers from coming out too much. That's the last one for that one. So let's see. What is next? The next is... Everybody Loves Large Chests. Fracker Frack is now following me. You hear Fracker Frack? Welcome, if so. Or if not, welcome anyway. Alright, let's see. Gotta find... Here we go. Oh no. You know what? I think that I didn't get the next request from Nevin. Crap. Wait a minute, what's this one? This is just the picture. Yeah, he didn't send it to me. Because I told him I don't know if I can do a whole 8 chapters of stuff. Crap, guys. I don't have a new... I accidentally lied. I don't have Everybody Loves Large Chests for you. Unless, Nevin, you're here. I haven't seen you in the chat yet. No. We can take a little commercial break. Yeah, I'm not seeing Nevin here in the chat. So sorry guys, I messed that up. I'm a bad person. It turns out I'm a bad person. I lied to you. Well, I guess we can just move on for now. I don't see Nevin in the chat. If he were here, he'd probably be able to give me a link. I know I'm a slacker, guys. Not enough thought put into this today. It's all Mom's fault for having Mother's Day. That's what I'm going to say. It's my mom. It's my mom's fault. Thanks, Mom. So, we're going to move on to the classics. So, we are doing Alice in Wonderland today.
And I'm not exactly sure what portion of it I should do. I was thinking about just doing the first couple of chapters, but then I really love the tea party. Is that what it's called? The tea party? A mad tea party. That's chapter 7. A mad tea party. Because there's lots of characters going back and forth in that one. So what do you guys think? Should I just do the first couple chapters? Or should I do like chapter 7 and 8? Or maybe 6 and 7? What's chapter 6? I love how these chapters are named. Wow, where is the beginning of chapter 6? The formatting is not very good for this Kindle book. It's the illustrated one too. I didn't realize that when I bought it. I know the chapters are tiny, so it should be easy to find them. But it's not. Chapter 8 is the Queen's Croquet Ground, but actually Chapter 7 is way longer than I thought it was going to be. So, yikes, come on now. Behave yourself, Kindle. Stop bumping into the camera. Alright, what do you guys think? Chapter 1? Starting Chapter 1 or Chapter 7? Need opinions. A mad tea party is what Chapter 7 is. That was there the whole time, like right in the middle of your view. Like I should just do the show like this. Hello. Welcome to Sound Booth Theater Live. Hello, everybody. No opinions. You're betraying me. You're all traitors. You won't tell me what you want to hear. Okay, well, I'm just going to do Chapter 7 then. Y'all. Because I like the Mad Tea Party. And, it's been like 11 billion years since I've actually seen the cartoon. Mike and half a Jeff, yeah. It's been a long time since I've seen the actual cartoon, so but you know the voices in all Disney movies are just so iconic. They always have such great voice actors, and I probably won't be able to help some of those portrayals of those characters bleeding into my performance. So I'll do my best to interpret it the way I would normally interpret anything. But hopefully it comes off as my own thing. But if I do some of their old voices, I'm sorry. Can't be helped. It's part of my childhood. Oh, and Lewis Carroll was a British guy, so I'm gonna just go ahead and narrate Britishly. I like to exercise that once in a while. You know me. Chapter 7. A Mad Tea Party. There was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. A dormouse was sitting between them, fast asleep, and the other two were using it as a cushion, resting their elbows on it, and talking over its head. "Very uncomfortable for the dormouse," thought Alice. "Only, as it's asleep, I suppose it doesn't mind." The table was a large one,
but the three were all crowded together at one corner of it.
"No room! No room!"
they cried out when they saw Alice coming.
"There's plenty of room,"
said Alice indignantly, and she sat down in a large armchair at one end of the table.
"Have some wine,"
the March Hare said in an encouraging tone. Alice looked all around the table, but there was nothing on it but tea.
"I don't see any wine,"
she remarked.
"There isn't any,"
said the March Hare.
"Then it wasn't very civil of you to offer it,"
said Alice angrily.
"It wasn't very civil of you to sit down without being invited," said the March Hare.
"I didn't know it was your table," said Alice. "It's laid for a great many more than 3.
Okay, so I can already hear. I can already hear the guy's voice who did the Mad Hatter in the Disney cartoon, and I'm very tempted to do it. I'm gonna try not to, though. Let's see. I gotta come up with something that's not that.
"Your hair wants cutting," said the Hatter. He had been looking at Alice for some time with great curiosity, and this was his first speech.
"You should learn not to make personal remarks,"
Alice said with some severity.
"It's very rude."
The Hatter opened his eyes very wide on hearing this, but all he said was, "Why is a raven like a writing desk?"
"Come, we shall have some fun now," thought Alice. "I'm glad they've begun asking riddles. I believe I can guess that," she added aloud.
Do you mean that
you think you can find out the answer to it?"
said the March Hare.
"Exactly so,"
said Alice.
"Then you should say what you mean,"
the March Hare went on.
"I do,"
Alice hastily replied.
At least I mean what I say. That's the same thing, you know."
"Not the same
thing a bit," said the Hatter. "You might just as well say that I see what I eat is the same thing as I eat what I see."
You might just as well say," added the March Hare, "that I like what I get is the same thing as I get what I like."
Let's see, the Dormouse.
"You might just as well say,"
added the Dormouse, who seemed to be talking in his sleep,
"that I breathe when I sleep is the same thing as I sleep when I breathe."
"It is the same thing with you," said the Hatter,
and here this conversation dropped, and the party sat silent for a minute, while Alice thought over all she could remember about ravens and writing desks, which wasn't very much. The Hatter was the first to break the silence.
"What day of the month is it?"
he said, turning to Alice. He had taken his watch out of his pocket and was looking at it uneasily, shaking it every now and then and holding it to his ear. Alice considered a little, and then said,
"The 4th.
2 days wrong," sighed the Hatter. "I told you butter wouldn't suit the works," he added, looking angrily at the March Hare.
"It was the best butter,"
the March Hare meekly replied.
"Yes, but some crumbs must have got in as well," the Hatter grumbled. "You shouldn't have put it in with the bread knife."
The March Hare took the watch and looked at it gloomily. Then he dipped it into his cup of tea and looked at it again, but he could think of nothing better to say than his first remark.
"It was the best butter, you know."
Alice had been looking over his shoulder with some curiosity.
"What a funny watch," she remarked. "It tells the day of the month and doesn't tell what o'clock it is."
"Why should it?" muttered the Hatter. "Does your watch tell you what year it is?"
"Of course not,"
Alice replied very readily.
"But that's because it says the same year for such a long time together."
I'm not sure what that means, but that's because it
but that's because it stays the same year for such a long time together.
"Which is just the case with mine," says the Hatter.
Alice felt dreadfully puzzled. The Hatter's remark seemed to have no sort of meaning in it,
and yet it was certainly English. "I don't quite understand you," she said, as politely as she could.
"The Dormouse is asleep again," said the Hatter,
and he poured a little hot tea upon its nose. The Dormouse shook its head impatiently and said, without opening its eyes,
Of course. Just what I was going to remark myself."
"Have you guessed the riddle yet?" the Hatter said, turning to Alice again.
"No, I give it up," Alice replied. "What's the answer?"
"I haven't the slightest idea," said the Hatter.
"Nor I," said the March Hare.
Alice sighed wearily. "I think you might do something better with the time," she said, "than waste it in asking riddles that have no answers."
If you knew time as well as I do," said the Hatter, "you wouldn't talk about wasting it. It's him."
"I don't know what you mean,"
said Alice. "Of course you don't," the Hatter said, tossing his head contemptuously. "I dare say you never even spoke to time."
"Perhaps not," Alice cautiously replied, "but I know I have to beat time when I learn music."
"Ah, that accounts for it," said the Hatter. "He won't stand beating. Now, if you only kept on good terms with him, he'd do almost anything you liked with the clock. For instance, suppose it were 9 o'clock in the morning, just time to begin lessons. You'd only have to whisper a hint to time, and round goes the clock in a twinkling. 1:30, time for dinner."
"I only wish it was," the March Hare said to itself in a whisper. "That would be grand, certainly," said Alice thoughtfully. "But then, I shouldn't be hungry for it, you know."
"Not at first, perhaps," said the Hatter, "but you could keep it to 1:30, as long as you liked."
"Is that the way you manage?"
Alice asked. The Hatter shook his head mournfully. "Not I," he replied. "We quarrelled last March, just before he went mad, you know," pointing with his teaspoon at the March Hare. "It was at the great concert given by the Queen of Hearts, and I had to sing, 'Twinkle, twinkle, little bat, how I wonder what you're at.' You know the song, perhaps?"
"I've heard something like it,"
said Alice. "It goes on, you know," the Hatter continued, "in this way. 'Up above the world you fly, like a tea tray in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle.'"
Here the Dormouse shook itself and began singing in its sleep,
"Twinkle, twinkle, twinkle, twinkle,"
and went on so long that they had to pinch it to make it stop.
"Well, I'd hardly finished the first verse," said the Hatter, "when the Queen jumped up and bawled out, 'He's murdering the time! Off with his head!'"
"How dreadfully savage!"
exclaimed Alice. "And ever since that," the Hatter went on in a mournful tone, "he won't do a thing I ask. It's always 6 o'clock now."
A bright idea came into Alice's head. "Is that the reason so many tea things are put out here?" she asked.
"Yes, that's it," said the Hatter with a sigh. "It's always tea time, and we've no time to wash the things between whiles."
"Then you keep moving round, I suppose?"
said Alice. "Exactly so," said the Hatter, as the things get used up."
"But what happens when you come to the beginning again?"
Alice ventured to ask. Suppose we
change the subject,"
the March Hare interrupted, yawning.
"I'm getting tired of this. I vote the young lady tell us a story." "I'm afraid I don't know one," said Alice, rather alarmed at the proposal. "Then the Dormouse shall," they both cried. "Wake up, Dormouse!" And they pinched it on both sides at once. The Dormouse slowly opened his eyes.
"I wasn't asleep,"
he said in a hoarse, feeble voice.
"I heard every word you fellows were saying."
"Tell us a story," said the March Hare.
"Yes, please do,"
pleaded Alice. "And be quick about it," added the Hatter, "or you'll be asleep again before it's done."
"Once upon a time there were 3 little sisters,"
the Dormouse began in a great hurry.
In a great hurry.
"Once upon a time there were 3 little sisters,"
the Dormouse began in a great hurry.
"and their names were Elsie, Lacey, and Tilly, and they lived at the bottom of a well."
"What did they live on?" "What did they live on?" said Alice, who always took a great interest in questions of eating and drinking.
Triacle. I forget what this word means. Or, by forget, I mean I never knew. Figurative, cloying, sentimentality, or flattery. Okay. What?
They lived on a triacle.
Wait, I didn't even look at how to pronounce it. Triacle? No, just treacle,
They lived on a treacle.
said the Dormouse, after thinking a minute or two. They couldn't have done that, you know, Alice gently remarked. They'd have been ill.
So they were.
Said the Dormouse.
Very ill.
Alice tried to fancy to herself what such an extraordinary ways of living. Such an extraordinary way of... Alice tried to fancy to herself what such an extraordinary way of living would be like, but it puzzled her too much. So she went on. But why did they live at the bottom of a well?
Take some more tea,
the March Hare said to Alice, very earnestly. I've had nothing yet, Alice replied in an offended tone, so I can't take more. You mean you can't take less, said the Hatter. It's very easy to take more than nothing.
Nobody asked your opinion,
said Alice. Who's making personal remarks now? The Hatter asked triumphantly. Alice did not quite know what to say to this, so she helped herself to some tea and bread and butter, and then turned to the Dormouse and repeated her question. Why did they live at the bottom of a well? The Dormouse again took a minute or two to think about it, and then said,
It was a treacle well. There's no such thing.
Alice was beginning very angrily, but the Hatter and the March Hare went, Shh, shh, and the Dormouse sulkily remarked,
If you can't be civil, you'd better finish the story for yourself.
No, please go on, Alice said, very humbly. I won't interrupt again. I dare say there may be one.
One indeed,
said the Dormouse indignantly. However, he consented to go on.
And so, these three little sisters, they were learning to draw, you know. They were learning to draw, you know.
What did they draw? Said Alice, quite forgetting her promise.
Treacle,
said the Dormouse, without considering it all this time. I want a clean cup, interrupted the Hatter. Let's all move one place. He moved on as he spoke, and the Dormouse followed him. The March Hare moved into the Dormouse's place, and Alice rather unwillingly took the place of the March Hare. The Hatter was the only one who got any advantage from the change, and Alice was a good deal worse off than before, as the March Hare had just upset the milk jug into his plate. Alice did not wish to offend the Dormouse again, so she began very cautiously. But I don't understand. Where did they draw the treacle from? You can draw water out of a water well, said the Hatter, so I should think you could draw treacle out of a treacle well. Stupid? Stupid?
But they were in the well,
Alice said to the Dormouse, not choosing to notice the last remark.
Of course they were,
said the Dormouse.
Well, in.
This answer so confused poor Alice that she let the Dormouse go on for some time without interrupting it.
They were learning to draw,
the Dormouse went on, yawning and rubbing its eyes, for it was getting very sleepy.
And they drew all manner of things, everything that begins with an M.
Why with an M? Said Alice. Why not?
Why not?
Said the March Hare. Alice was silent. The Dormouse had closed its eyes by this time, and was going off into a doze. But, on being pinched by the Hatter, it woke up again with a little shriek, and went on.
That begins with an M, such as mousetraps, and the moon, and memory, and muchness. You know you say things are much of muchness. Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness? Did you ever see such a thing as a drawing of a muchness?
Really? Now you ask me, said Alice, very much confused. I don't think...
Then you shouldn't
talk, said the Hatter. This piece of rudeness was more than Alice could bear. She got up in great disgust and walked off. The Dormouse fell asleep instantly, and neither of the others took the least notice of her going, though she looked back once or twice, half hoping that they would call after her. The last time she saw them, they were trying to put the Dormouse into the teapot. At any rate, I'll never go there again, said Alice, as she picked her way through the wood. It's the stupidest tea-party I ever was at all in my... Ah, okay. I got corrected by what treacle is. A blend of molasses, sugar, and corn syrup. It's spelled differently than that in the book. It's spelled without a K, so maybe that's the problem.
It's the stupidest tea party I ever was at in all my life.
Just as she said this, she noticed that one of the trees had a door leading right into it.
That's very curious, she thought. But everything's curious today. I think I may as well go in at once.
And in she went. Once more she found herself in the long hall and close to the little glass table.
Now, I'll manage better this time,
she said to herself, and began by taking the little golden key and unlocking the door that led into the garden.
Excuse me.
Then she went to work nibbling at the mushroom. She'd kept a piece of it in her pocket, till she was about a foot high. Then she walked down the little passage, and then she found herself at last in the beautiful garden, among the bright flower beds and the cool fountains.
So yeah, I feel like that entire scene could be picked apart and analyzed and like made into, it's some kind of allegory, I can tell. Some kind of commentary on, social commentary about parties or about the nature of parties. It's a very interesting scene. I don't know. I bet you could write like a whole college dissertation on it or something. Very complex. That's one thing I really like about Alice in Wonderland is, though it's surreal, it's obviously about something. It's obviously got something connecting to all of us about the human condition. I just don't quite know yet what. I'm sure there's tons of different interpretations you could come up with. But yeah, Don Chapman requested that one for the classic. So thank you, Don. I don't think you're here today, but I'm sure you'll be watching the replay. And it was fun to do. Nice practice with the characters. Now, it is Cringe Theater time. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is now time to investigate Mr. Chuck Tingle. Pretty excited about this. As I said before, we are... before I get started, I want to remind everybody, just in case there's someone new here, someone new watching on Facebook, someone new watching on YouTube, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your husband. This shit is going to be crazy. It's going to be very inappropriate. That's what Cringe Theater is all about. Taking... Let me put him away real quick. Cringe Theater is all about reading really inappropriate, cringy stuff. Now, as far as I know... so that's your warning. Get out of here if you get offended easily. This is going to be nuts. So anyway, as I was saying about Chuck Tingle, and as Adric was telling me, it may be that this is really well-written stuff, apparently. And it's really well-written nonsense. Chuck Tingle is extremely prolific. Adric was telling me that he will actually release a book, and his books are only like 4,000 to 5,000 words each. He says that he will release a book on a certain topic, like a news topic, the day that the news topic becomes available, right? So he just jumps right. It's kind of like South Park, where they just jump on things. And again, there's a chance that this is a team of authors. There's a lot of rumors going around about who this Chuck Tingle guy is. So hopefully this gets his attention, and I'd like to read a lot of his stuff for these Cringe Theaters, because it just all seems so genius. I mean, take a look at some of these other titles. This one's one of his more famous ones. Space Raptor Butt Invasion. I'm pretty sure this is all super gay porn as well. Yes, Space Raptor Butt Invasion. The covers are amazing too. It's a raptor in an old spacesuit on a space Segway. This is one of my favorites. Oppressed in the Butt by My Inclusive Holiday Coffee Cups. This is the one that Michael Ryan Soilo requested. Butt Wars, Rogue Buns. This is another great one. Leonardo DiCaprio finally wins his award, and it pounds him in the butt. And one of the topical news ones. Last but not least, pounded by the pound, turned gay by the socio-economic implications of Britain leaving the European Union. I can't wait. This is amazing. The fact that this guy exists is a gift to the Kindle market. Hugo nominated, indeed. And he's even got I didn't find a cover for it. I can't remember the exact name of it, but he's got a book about the Hugo nomination. So this guy's obviously not completely serious. Or these guys, whoever it is reading this stuff. By the way, I actually checked Pounded in the Butt by my own butt out in my Kindle Unlimited account. So I'm sure I'm going to be getting all this gay porn advertised to me now from Amazon. But whatever. So, we're traveling down this rabbit hole. Pounded in the Butt by my own butt. I don't know what to expect. By Chuck Tingle. Cringe Theater, y'all. This is your last opportunity. Get the fuck out if you don't want to be traumatized. If you're easily triggered. Where does the miracle of science end and magic begin? Some people would say never. That magic is nothing more than something we can't quite understand yet, but eventually will. Just because a force seems mysterious and exotic doesn't mean that it can't be quantified later on. As a young researcher, I haven't been around in my field long enough to see any of these enormous changes take place, but I like to remind myself about things in the present that must have seemed like magic to those in the past. Electricity alone could have been framed in another way decades ago, considered the result of hours upon hours of careful black magic. Of course, I know better. Magic isn't real, nor the various mystical trappings that come along with it. Love at first sight or luck, just to name a few. I'm a staunch skeptic, as anyone else with my job, a research assistant at Rubble Biological Labs, should be. But even a hardline skeptic like me can't help but feel a little twinge of magic in the air when they first hear the news about Hunter Tuck Island. The now private island was recently purchased by a rather eccentric billionaire who immediately went to work doing clone research and creating several living copies of himself. At first, the news of the small island colony was met by various scoffs of doubt, but as time went on and evidence was presented, the findings were quickly regarded as scientific truth. Of course, there are a whole slew of ethical arguments to be addressed here, especially because the clones were not exact replicas, but rather mutants of the original sample, biologically programmed to be less intelligent worker drones.
These drones were then used to build an entirely new infrastructure on the island. This is amazingly well written. Sin asks, how does that even work anatomically? Okay, obviously his butt's got wings. Duh, Sin. It just separates itself and... I was ecstatic. Finally, the first massive shift in biology, and I am poised on the front lines of progress. But once the breakthroughs on Huntertuck Island became regarded as scientific fact, the ability to recreate such incredible results was quickly locked up tight. I can't blame them. After all, once we have the ability to create these worker drone clones, the business potential is almost unlimited. The entire industry would be a gold mine, redefining the entire world's economy. Of course, the government was quick to step in and put a stop to all of this. Regardless of what a league of worker drone clones could do for progress, there were just too many people getting worked up about the human rights of such mindless creatures. Maybe they had a point. Maybe not. But it was an absolutely fascinating new discovery, nonetheless. Here at Rubble Biological Labs, we've taken a balanced approach to moving forward. We've used the early results from Huntertuck Island to create the basis of our experiments, but started over completely with the rest of the research. To describe it another way, we've taken a photo of their finished puzzle, and now we are working hard to put all of the pieces back into the right place. Thanks to a massive loophole, all of our research is perfectly legal, so long as we don't use any exact copies of the Huntertuck method, and as long as we aren't hiring any outside test subjects. The only people that we are allowed to test on are ourselves. As intimidating as it could be to have a potential clone running around out there in the world, it's really not that hard to volunteer for experimentation because, to this day, none of the experiments have yielded any living results. That is, until today. I walked into work that morning like I would on any other day, swiping my keycard through the laboratory reader and walking past as the door automatically opens with a soft hiss. I say hello to the security guards and continue down a long hallway into the depths of the facility until I reach Lab 243, a highly secretive and high-clearance area. I swipe my card again and enter. "Kirk!" shouts one of my colleagues, Dr. Porter, as he sees me. He opens his arms wide and stands up from his row of computers to greet me with a warm hug.
"Today's the big day!"
"I know," I say with a laugh. "I'm up to bat." Dr. Porter motions me over to his lead computer and types in a few quick commands, a bright blue display of cloning schematics popping up onto his computer screen. My eyes go wide the second that I see what he has planned. "Oh, whoa!"
It's great, isn't it?"
Dr. Porter offers with an excited smile. The cloning process, on the surface, is fairly simple to accomplish, but not in the way that we want to do it. Anyone can extract some DNA and place it into an egg, creating a new version of you at birth that will take 9 months to gestate, and then come out as a beautiful bouncing baby. However, for our practical application of cloning worker drones, and other specified jobs for that matter, we need our clones to emerge at the same age as the subject. In other words, I'm a 22-year-old man, and we need my worker drone to be as well. The problem with this is that the rapid, almost instantaneous cell growth is far from stable. Instead of fully complete clones, we have been creating strange and disturbing piles of lifeless flesh, or worse. If I wasn't so interested in science and human progress, then I would be horrified, but instead I find myself in utter fascination with every passing experiment. Of course, some positive results would be great, but each failed trial is just another brick in the road towards a result. Lately, We have been trying to keep the rapid cell growth stable by combining the DNA with small markers from various animals, as well as taking them from different specific regions of the human body. Today's trial, which I have been randomly selected for as the subject, is going to take DNA from my brain, my ass, and a hawk. What a combination, I say aloud with a laugh. Dr. Porter shrugs.
Last time I was in there, we tried my arm, my lung, and a catfish.
And? I question curiously.
We got a very creepy balloon-type thing flopping around.
Dr. Porter shrugs.
Had to put it down immediately.
When I hear stuff like that, it makes me slightly nervous about the way that we've started playing God here at Rubble Laboratories. On one hand, I really do understand the history-making application of what we have going here, but on the other, it can be a little unsettling sometimes. I leave and meet with our resident nurses for some time, who take all of the required samples from my body while Dr. Porter prepares the hawk. 6 hours later, we meet back in the lab. How's it looking? I ask Dr. Porter.
Good. Very good.
He nods.
The DNA has been synthesized and is already inside the egg.
I look out through a large glass window before us that stares into a sterilized chamber, completely white and almost entirely empty, other than a table, a large synthetic egg, and some injection equipment. It's already in? I ask excitedly. For how long?
10 minutes,
Dr. Porter says.
Should be ready to come out any minute now.
Normally, the gestation period takes no longer than 10 minutes, so if we don't see any results, our chances of success go down drastically. I lean forward, peering into the chamber with rapt attention. I'm used to failure by now, but that doesn't mean that moments like this are any less tense. The seconds turn into minutes, and soon Dr. Porter and I are relaxed, talking to one another about the next genetic combination that we're going to try. It's over.
The fact that there was no result at all was probably because of the brain cells, says Dr. Porter. It's just too delicate of an organ. We never get what we are looking for when we add that to the cocktail.
I don't know, I start. I think that the brain is our only chance. We need to look at whatever is happening in the bird DNA. Other birds have had great results, but the hawk is just not happening for some reason. Dr. Porter is about to refute my statement, and gets his mouth halfway open, before suddenly there is a loud slam against the glass behind us. Dr. Porter and I jump in surprise, immediately looking up to find a rather large, winged butt hovering in the air just inside of the glass. "Hey there," says the butt. "You think you could let me out of here? I'm freezing my ass off." The rump chuckles to himself. My partner and I exchange glances of excitement.
Of course,
Dr. Porter says, running over to the containment chamber and opening it up.
Welcome.
The flying butt flaps its way inside and then lands on the desk in front of us. "Hello!"
"Congratulations! You're our first sentient creation,"
Dr. Porter says, extending his hand to the butt, who takes it with his wing and shakes firmly. "Happy to be here," says the ass, "but you can call me Kirk's butt." "You know that you're my butt?" I ask. "Of course I do," says my winged ass. "I'm made from your brain. I know everything that you know." A slight chill runs down my spine. I hadn't realized that all of my deepest secrets would suddenly be transplanted into this butt. I try my best, but I am still a flawed man with a penchant for running out on relationships and taking practical jokes too far.
What?
"Don't worry," I'm not going to spill the beans, my butt says with a wink. I nod.
Oh man, this is getting intense.
Dr. Porter finds himself glancing back and forth between us, clearly picking up on the vibe that's being established. After many nights out drinking with Dr. Porter, he has proven himself to be a killer wingman, and already he's showing his impeccable support once again.
It's been a long day,
Dr. Porter says, doing his best to fake a yawn.
Your butt can't stay here all night. There's no place to sleep. Why don't you take him home, and then we can pick this up tomorrow morning?
I give Dr. Porter a knowing look of thanks. And he smiles back in return. That sounds good to me, my ass says. Yeah, totally, I tell Dr. Porter, then turn to my living butt. You hungry? I've never eaten. It sounds amazing, responds my sentient ass. Let's go! Seeing as it is his first meal ever, I decide to splurge a bit on my butt, taking him out to a fancy French restaurant in the hip part of town.
This is so difficult not to laugh. I'm like trying to. I just want to. I want to do this straight face as possible.
It would usually be impossible to get a reservation on such short notice, but thankfully I know someone who works here and she's able to pull some strings for us. The next thing I know, I'm sitting across from my own ass, looking deep within his soulful eye. I'm not sure what to ask you, I confess. I mean, you know everything that I know, right? Pretty much, says the butt, his wings folded neatly behind him. He takes a long sip from his wine glass, savoring every moment before setting it back down onto the table. But I've never felt it. That right there. Felt what? I ask, confused. I have all of your memories about drinking wine. I know what to expect when I do it, and I know what it's going to taste like, but I've never truly tasted it for myself, the butt explains. It's incredible. Whoa, I say, that is amazing. I'm actually kind of jealous of you right now. Really? Asks my living butt. Why jealous? Well, I know we're both 22, but at the same time, you have so much to experience. Everything is going to be new and exciting for you. My butt smiles. Yeah, I suppose it is. Like this fucking steak that I just ordered. I laugh. You're really interested in food, aren't you? Well, I am a butt, my butt jokes. I laugh out loud at this, impressed with his familiar sense of humor to my own. For the first time in a long time, I finally feel like I'm sitting across the table from someone who really gets me. Deep down at the core of my being, it's hard enough dating as a gay man in today's world of casual hookups and reckless flings. I'm looking for something more, and, incredibly, I think I might have just found it. That's not to say that my feelings for my own living ass aren't sexual. Far from it. The connection that I'm looking for is something that embodies every kind of attraction. If I'm going to be honest, at this very moment, I can barely contain my lust for this suave, sophisticated living butt. Even the features that I don't directly recognize as my own are absolutely gorgeous, like the brilliant golden wings that sprout from his back. I feel like you need a name, I tell my own butt. I know that you're a part of me, and I love that about you, but you also need an identity of your own. My ass thinks about this proposition for a moment, and then nods in agreement. All right, what's my name? How about Portork? I offer. That's a pretty sexy name. Portork, my ass repeats aloud. Yeah, it's very manly, but also seductive. I like that name a lot. Portork it is, I laugh. Cheers to that. The two of us raise our wine glasses and clink them together right as our steaks arrive, perfectly cooked and rare as can be. I watch as Portork slices off a thin, tender strip of meat and then chews it happily, swallowing with complete satisfaction. "And?" I ask. "What do you think?" My winged ass smiles. "It's incredible!" Suddenly, I feel myself overwhelmed with lust for this incredible butt. I know that this is only the first night we've known each other, but I also know that the feelings I have for this ass are not just some fat passing phase. This is as real as it gets, and if I don't say something now, I will regret it for the rest of my life. "Is there anything else you've wanted to experience?" I ask Portork. The living butt immediately picks up on the weight of my words, eyeing me suspiciously. "Yeah, of course," he says. "Anything that I can help you with?" I question, continuing to lead him along. The tension is building. This is amazing. I can immediately tell that Portork understands what I am asking of him, reading between the lines with expert precision. The butt hesitates for a moment, and then finally offers, "I'd like to try anal." "I think I can help you with that," I tell him with a sly grin. The second that we get back to my apartment, all bets are off. Portork and me stumble through the door, kissing frantically as we make our way towards the bedroom. The second that we get inside, I push my living ass down onto the bed and watch as he spreads his majestic wings out behind him. For a living butt, his physique is quite impressive, and I laugh out loud when I realize that I'm only complimenting myself. As I lean in towards Portork, I see a massive cock beginning to grow out of the front of his body, stretching upward until it becomes a fully engorged shaft. "Impressive," I tell the flying butt. "Hey, I got it from you," Portork says with a wink. Seconds later, I open wide and engulf his massive rod in my mouth, taking his shaft down as far as I can before pulling back. I do this movement again, and then again, until eventually I find myself bobbing up and down on his length with a confident rhythm. My living butt is clearly enjoying himself, groaning loudly as he pushes back into the bed and stretches his wings. "Oh my God," says Portork, "that is so fucking good." I pull the butt's cock out of my mouth and just long enough to tell him, "Just wait," and then swallow his shaft completely, pushing down as far as I can. When Portork's rod hits my gag reflex, I do everything that I can to relax, somehow managing to let his incredible size slip past my barrier. Now my face is pressed hard against his ass cheeks, his dick fully inserted into my mouth.
Oh my God.
Portork puts his wings against the back of my head and keeps me here for a while, enjoying the control that he has over me. My throat is stuffed completely, no sound and no air. Just when I'm about to start worrying, my ass lets me up with a huge gasp of air. "I need you to fuck me," I suddenly admit in a haze of lustful desperation. "I need to be pounded up the ass by my own ass." I climb up onto the bed, past Portork, and frantically remove my clothes, tearing off my shirt, pants, and underwear while the flying butt flaps around the room and observes my toned body. "Looking good," Portork tells me. I give a bashful smile and then lean forward on my hands and knees, completely naked with my toned, muscular ass popped out behind me. I reach back and give myself a playful slap on the cheek, then look back at Portork. "I'm just a bad little twink," I admit to him, "and I need to be slammed from behind. I need to be taught a lesson by my own flying gay ass." "With pleasure," Portork tells me, flapping down and perching atop my butt. He quickly aligns the head of his cock with my puckered rectum, teasing the edge of my tightness with his impressive length. "Do it," I command. "Shove it in there!" Immediately, poor Torque pushes forward, impaling me onto his sizable length. His rod is certainly impressive, but it's also a little difficult to reckon with, filling my entire body with a swirling rush of ecstasy and aching discomfort. The rim of my butthole can barely accommodate the cock size of my magnificent cloned ass, but it does its best, stretched to the limit as poor Torque pushes even deeper into me. Eventually, poor Torque comes to a stop, my own ass completely buried deep within my own ass. Oh my God. I let out a long, agonizing groan as my living butt holds there, and then brace myself against the bed before me while he begins to flap his wings and pump in and out. Soon, poor Torque has found a steady rhythm, pulsing in and out of my rectum with a powerful precision that is unlike any human lover I have ever experienced. The connection erupting between us right now is more than just one of depraved lust. It's an expression of pure, unfiltered love in its rawest form. The love between a man and his own living ass. Okay, guys. I think I've had enough. This is intense. My brain hurts. This is ridiculous. Masterfully crafted sex scene. Can you? I think I've had enough. I don't know. I can't. I think it just keeps getting worse from here. Oh God. I think I've reached my limit. I may need to, like, this is on another level. Boy. Wow. Cringe Theater, y'all. Pounded in the butt by my own butt by Chuck Tingle. Is there a Jason versus Katy Perry 2? That is something to ask Kitty Glitter. Bunny T. Fur on Facebook. I think you've seen him comment. Wow. I just can't go any further with this one. It takes practice to read this kind of intense literature. I think next week, Cringe Theater will have something else. You know, Soilo also requested that Colonel Sanders romance. So I might try that one next week. And then I want to do the sequel to Pounded in the Butt by My Own Butt, because that looks even more ridiculous. It was the first life raft I could think of instead of this rear end reaming stuff. Oh, so disturbing and so well written. Adric was right. It is incredibly well written. I'm like traumatized. That was equally awful and amazing. Whew. Okay, but that's Cringe Theater, guys. That's how it works. That's what this is for making everyone uncomfortable, including myself. I think part of the fun is watching me struggle. Watching me struggle through. Okay, so anyways, that's Sound Booth Theater Live for tonight. The most intense Cringe Theater ever. I'm sure I'll top it at some point. Maybe the sequel will top it. I'll do that in maybe 2-3 weeks. We'll see. I want to get Joel in on it. That's what I really want to. I keep forgetting to schedule something with Joel.
I think he just got out of the hospital not too long ago. He had some kind of surgery, so maybe he's doing better by now. I need to get a hold of him. I also want to get Michael Orenstein on this show. I want to see who else we can get on this show. We haven't done a collab in a while, and I feel like you guys really liked the collab. It got a lot of views, so... Anyway, this coming Wednesday... Oops. I'm, like, behind on this. So, Wednesday, it's gonna be, a Sound Booth Theater Live featuring only Super Sales on Superheroes by Mr. William D. Arend, another Lit RPG. So I'm going to be posting this on the Lit RPG Society Facebook as well. But I don't know if you guys have been noticing, if you've been watching, but Super Sales on Superheroes is doing incredibly well in the Kindle market. It surpassed everything but Harry Potter in paranormal/urban fantasy. So Super Sales on Superheroes will be on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central. Probably going to do an hour and a half, something like that. Pick some good scenes, figure out all the characters. I already did the first chapter in last week's Sound Booth Theater Live, I believe. Request only. So we're going to go somewhere past the first chapter. But yeah, I need to start reading that this week so that I can find good spots to read from. I'm excited to get started recording that one. I'll get started recording next Monday, not tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm getting started on Delvers LLC. Obligations incurred. So yeah, that was sound. I'm still traumatized. I feel like I've been raped by my own butt. That's if there is such a sensation as that. It has been achieved through this Cringe Theater. I have to give props to Chuck Tingle. Holy shit, that was disturbing and hilarious. And I couldn't keep going. There was plenty of time left in the show. And it's just I'm violated. I'm violated by having done that. I did it to myself, you know. I'm not blaming anybody. But holy shit. Wow. It takes talent. Bah! Anyway, thanks guys for hanging out with me here on Sound Booth Theater Live Requests Only. Wednesday, we'll pick it back up, 7 p.m. Central. Super Sale on Superheroes by William D. Arend. And I will see you then.